still got 3 minutes. It's 9:27. One more week. Okay. Since Jeff and Ray are ready to start, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. John Moore, can I get you to lead prayer for me, buddy? Thank you. All right, I'm going to be in Isaiah chapter 19. The hope is today we will make it through 19 and 20, which will bring us to a breaking point where we'll have some other classes and things like that, just to sort of break up Isaiah here. And then the next time we talk about Isaiah, we'll start in chapter 21 and go through 40. And then we'll take a break from that. Because that is the sort of natural break from the tone of the book. Everything after chapter 40 is a little more positive and things of that nature, and so it's a like I said, it's a natural resting point. And so and then we'll get through chapters 41 through 66. All right. Now I wanted to point something out that I probably should have mentioned a while back, and that is when we read Isaiah, a lot of times it just seems like a random train of thought. One moment he's talking about Israel, the next moment he's talking about Moab, the next moment he's talking about Philistia, and now here in 19 he's going to be talking about Egypt. And so it is sort of you kind of wonder how is he keeps bouncing from subject to subject. And the idea behind it is that these are separate events, right? So he's going to talk about Egypt. And then maybe there would be some time, and then he will talk about the next subject. And so the way they would get it would be as individual sort of little components. I'm going to talk about Moab and Philistia and those places. Here is that's that unit. Maybe some time passes. Now I'm going to talk about Egypt, right? And so where we see it, and it's just one right after the other, bang, 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 there would have been some time in between them for these messages to breathe, so to speak. So I just wanted to remind us of that. It's not like, he goes from one thing to the next thing, and it's sort of, like, why wasn't he picking a more cohesive path through Isaiah here? And the reason why is because it was not meant to be cohesive at the time it was delivered. They were meant to be sort of their own standalone units and delivered in such a way. So, at this particular moment, he is delivering a message about Egypt, which, if you remember, is not the superpower that it once was, but it is still a significant power in the area, in the region, right? One of the things that made Egypt sort of constantly significant is the fact that it was the gateway into the African continent, right? You would come down, and we've talked about this before. If you were coming down to Asia, you would go down and through Israel, and Israel becomes sort of the land bridge between the two. And Egypt is going to be the next place you come to, and so it's going to be important regardless. And on top of that, it also has the history and the infrastructure to go with it. So he begins in verse 1 and says, "Behold, the Lord is riding on a swift cloud and comes to Egypt. And the idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of the Egyptians will melt within them. And I will stir up the Egyptians against Egyptians, and they will fight against each other, each against his neighbor, city against city, kingdom against kingdom, and the spirit of the Egyptians within them will be emptied out. And I will confound the council, and they will inquire of the idols and the sorcerers and the mediums and the necromancers. And I will give over the Egyptians into the hand of a hard master, and the fierce king will rule over them, declares the Lord God of hosts. So, starts off, and what does he say? Here comes God. He's coming in judgment, and he comes as a swift cloud. And so here we are somewhat familiar with that very idea, right? You have storms that blow in. They're very quick, especially if you get closer to the coast. On the coastal bend, storms blowing all the time, and they're really quick. And they'll show up, and then they're gone, and before you can blink, it's over, right? Well, where does Israel, where does it sit? It sits on a coast. They're used to storms blowing in from the west, going east, and so it's something that would be a natural phenomenon that they would observe. And so the idea here is that God is coming, he's moving in quickly. Just like you wake up one morning, you're like, hey, the sun's out today, and then all of a sudden, right after lunch, here comes the storm, and then by the evening time, it's all clear and calm again. That's sort of the picture that's painted here of God. They think everything is going all right, and then suddenly God is upon them. And when they realize what is happening, what's the reaction of their idols? They tremble at his presence. Why would the Egyptians' idols tremble at the presence of God? Yeah, they've already seen this once before, right? And as we pointed out in the past, if you take each one of the 10 plagues, each one of them is an affront or an attack on a specific Egyptian god. And so not only is God punishing Pharaoh, but he's also teaching the Israelites a lesson. I am the true and living God. These other gods don't compare to me. The things that they're supposed to control, whether it's the Nile or it's Hek, the frog-headed god, or anything like that, I control all of this, right? I am in charge of all of this. And so, of course, they see him coming again. Their hearts melt at his presence, right? They see these gods see Jehovah coming, and they are just absolutely terrified. And the Egyptians are also terrified as well. And he says, here's going to be the result. What is he describing when he's in verse 2 here? What would we call that? There's going to be infighting. It's a civil war of sorts, right? So one of the most effective ways to render something in some deal that is powerful as less powerful and useless is to get it to fight inwardly, right? Okay. I think probably many